But Mark, let's move now into the next team on the docket here for the preview, and that is the Indianapolis Colts. And this is a team where I don't want to start it off the same way we started the Jaguar preview off, but I kind of feel like you have to, where this is another team that coming in, quarterback question with Andrew Luck, and more so on his health, not his performance, but on his health. And I want to ask you the question that I saw on ESPN today. If you're coming into this season, do you have more concern for Andrew Luck or more concern for the rest of the Indianapolis Colts?
Well, I'm always going to have a lot of concern for the rest of the Indianapolis Colts because I jokingly said to you before we started recording today that getting drafted by the Colts is not good for the career when you're a quarterback. That's obviously a joke. Peyton Manning had a wonderful career and all that, but
he had a Super Bowl too.
Super Bowl.
The one you don't remember.
He had
Super Bowl.
Super Bowl is what I've heard. It's what I've been told.
Mark doesn't remember that Super Bowl.
A Super Bowl with the Indianapolis Colts. So for those of you who yelled at me in the comment section, I know he won one with Denver. We're talking about the Colts.
Yeah.
And the biggest issue for Peyton Manning was that he never, for being the greatest regular season quarterback, he never had enough support to get past some of those really good teams. Obviously, he went to 2 Super Bowls in Indianapolis, lost to Drew Brees for one of them. But I feel like the same thing is happening for Andrew Luck, that he's not going to get the rest of the pieces that he needs. And that's kind of been a theme for the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, I'm not trying to say he's got a terrible team. He's got some good stuff out here. But it's not, you look at the Patriots. You look at the great team that the Seahawks were able to put together. You look at the Falcons last year and all those weapons. You look at the Raiders and the weapons that Derek Carr gets to play around with. And Andrew Luck, who's a better quarterback than a lot of these guys, I don't know. I feel like he's always kind of missing something that some of these other great quarterbacks get to enjoy.
I'll tell you what he's missing. Do you want to know what he's missing?
A run game?
A solid defense.
Oh,
that's what he's missing. Because, I mean, the run game, I also wanted to kind of criticize that at first. But then I looked at the stats from last year, and it's like, you know what? Frank Gore, an 1,000-yard rusher. Yeah, he only had 4 touchdowns. However, Robert Turbin was the touchdown guy last year, but he only had 7 on that, that running back
it's a
committee.
below-average run game, but not necessarily terrible.
And it doesn't need to be a and I say that I'm going to use the word ferocious run game because you have Andrew Luck. Obviously, this is going to be a pass-first team.
Yeah.
When you have Andrew Luck and what he can do.
It certainly helps to have.
My big focal point for this season is going to be the defense. And I mean, when you look at this team and what they did in the draft particularly, I love the move that they made basically 1, 2, and 3, their first 3 picks of the draft. They go and get Malik Hooker at 15, which I thought was a steal.
Yep.
I thought he could have been a top 5 pick at the best last year. We even had him as high as 2 or 3, depending on the team you go for. I know we talked about him to the Bears at 3 a lot in our mocks. Then they go and get Quincy Wilson, the cornerback out of Florida. I love that pick in the second round. And then they go ahead and get themselves a defensive end in the 3rd round. So right there, you are tackling 2 of your biggest needs and 2 of the big needs that are going to help you win. A guy that's going to hopefully contribute in some way to a pass rush, but more importantly, 2 guys that you can put in the secondary to combat quarterbacks that you are going to go up against this year, because this division will have quarterbacks. Blake Bortles, like we said, we had the questions about him in the Jacksonville preview. However, he's a name throwing the ball that you can't just sleep on. Marcus Mariota, when healthy with the Titans, he's going to be huge, that you're going to play 2 times a year. And then what we're expecting in Houston to be Deshaun Watson, if he is anything like he was in college this first year in his rookie season, then you should be scared if you're Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And you're going to have these 3 quarterbacks to go up against twice for each of them.
The hard thing is the Indianapolis Colts have to put up points. They had to put up a lot of points because the defense has kind of historically been giving up a lot of points. The thing that worries me about that is I look at this PUP list and I see both your starting strong and free safeties sitting on that PUP list. And Andrew Luck, of course, is on it too. And everything is saying right now that he's good to go week 1. He'll be there week 1.
I think they should sit him out the preseason.
I'm sure they
entire
will.
preseason.
I don't doubt that they will. He doesn't need it. But I just look at a guy like Malik Hooker, and you don't like to see a rookie get injury issues in the offseason and preseason because a lot of times, and maybe this is just coming from a Chicago Bears fan, but a lot of times these injury issues, they linger through that rookie season if they don't completely end that rookie season. And this team, like I said, they needed to be able to stop teams from scoring points because that's why they've been so dependent on Andrew Luck and putting the world on his shoulders because they cannot stop the opposing team from scoring. And if you got, Malik Hooker, who's not going to play, this highly touted rookie you're really excited about, that really kind of puts a damper on this defense. And what do we praise him for being? The center fielder. He was the guy who was going to be able to watch everything, make sure everything's going the way it's supposed to, kind of be in control of that defense. And if he's not going to be there, that's a big loss.
The best thing this defense, and this is the target point, and I'm sure that people have heard about this before, and this isn't new information, but coming into this season, this defense needs to average about 18 points per game. If they average 18 points per game, the Colts will go undefeated this season. You want to know why I say that?
Why is that?
This is Andrew Luck's records between certain points per game. 16 to 18, he's 4-0. 13 to 15, 7-0. 10 to 12, 5-0. 7 to 9, 2-0. 1 to 3, 3-0. And when the other team doesn't score, 1-0. He's undefeated when the defense, I know it kind of seems like, well, duh, Ricky, that kind of seems to be the case, but when this defense holds a team to under 19 points per game, Andrew Luck's undefeated.
Because he's going to score at least 19.
And I mean, last year, the points per game for the offense, and why when you say like, they got to put up more points, I don't think it's the defense or the offense to put up more points.
No, I'm not saying the offense has to put up more points.
Because they were at 25.7.
I'm saying that no, that's not at all what I said.
Okay.
I said the offense has had to put up more points because the defense gives up 24 points a game.
They did. 24.5 was it?
Yeah.
Like they're half a point
so
away.
So that's why the world's
being
been on Andrew Luck's shoulder. He has to carry this team because the defense couldn't stop anybody.
And I mean, some of it too has been to like injuries in the past for the Colts. It's everything. Like every team has to deal with that. However, this defense needs to take a big step. When you've got guys like Vontae Davis, when you've got, I know he's on the PUP list right now, but Malik Hooker, you're adding Quincy Wilson. Those guys are expected, when healthy, to start for this team, hopefully week 1. And then you add this defense around. I wonder if this team has added the pieces to be a competent defense for Andrew Luck this year, because he has a running back that he can, for yardage, he can rely on, because Frank Gore last year in 1,000-yard rusher.
But Frank Gore is up there in age. He does not have much left.
That is a question. However, they do have guys like Robin Turbin behind him, and Josh Ferguson was a guy I want to say it was his rookie year last year out of Illinois. He was a guy that got some good carries. So hopefully Robert Turbin's obviously going to be your number 2, but if you do need to use guys like Ferguson, if you do have to go to the Marion Mack, who they pulled in this season, you can go ahead and use those guys as well. But obviously none of those are going to be your starter over a Frank Gore. And then you look at the wide receivers. Yeah, T.Y. Hilton's your main guy, but what I want to see more out of is the guy I look at is Philip Dorsett. You're a guy that they drafted out of Miami with some high praise.
Yep.
Some high praise for being a speedster. You got to show it, young fella. You got to come ahead and show it in 2017.
Yeah. And that's why you look at this and it's like he's got these good weapons on offense. He doesn't have the complete team necessarily. Frank Gore, yes, he was a 1,000-yard rusher, but if I'm Indianapolis, I'm not hanging my hat on Frank Gore. the guy's at the end of his career. It's coming to an end pretty soon. I'm not going to be super. I'm not going to rely on that. I mean, I definitely would have loved to see Indianapolis draft a running back in the draft last year. Hopefully, they get an opportunity to do it in the draft coming this year. If they don't need to address the defense yet again. So it's just tough when you look at things like that because this team, you have Andrew Luck, who should, I mean, he's one of the most talented quarterbacks out there right now, and he's young. You have him for a lot. You want to take advantage of that. You don't want to, don't get mad at me, comment section. You don't want to make the same mistake with Peyton Manning where you only get to win one Super Bowl. I understand it's hard to win a Super Bowl, but Tom Brady's got a shit ton of them. So, you know, you want to go and take advantage of this once-in-a-generation type of quarterback that Andrew Luck really is. And you want to win as much as you possibly can by getting that best team, drafting really well, you know, getting guys around him who are going to actually, you know, last out there, not get injured right off the bat. The Indianapolis Colts are a team where they should be in the playoffs every year. There's no reason why the Indianapolis Colts should ever miss the playoffs while Andrew Luck is on the field.
And you know what, I kind of, in comment section, you can kind of correct me if I'm kind of off here, but you know what, I kind of just hit me in my head when you just said they should be in the playoffs each and every year.
Sure.
Notice the trajectories from this team in New England since Deflategate.
Trajectories.
Colts, third worst, or third best team in their division. Patriots, who we would expect, Deflategate should have killed them, Super Bowl champions.
Yeah.
Now, I know you can say, well, they've got Tom Brady, but this team, this Colts team, the thing that I think is also going to be a huge loss for them is at the tight end position. And that is Dwayne Allen is going to be a huge loss because you're taking a guy who was, I know Jack Doyle had the more yards for the tight end position. However, with Dwayne Allen, it was a receiver that Andrew Luck liked to throw to in your dual tight end set.
Yeah.
And that is 400 yards and 6 touchdowns that you are virtually losing, that you have to find someone to replace that. And I know some people might say, well, Ricky, it's easy. Eric Swoop. He's the guy. Just next man up, Eric Swoop. Easier said than done. I know Swoop was a guy, 297 yards last year, but only 1 touchdown. In being the third stringer. I look at that also and I go, how is that going to play in when you have wide receivers where Dorsett, like I said, only 528 yards with only 2 touchdowns? And when you've got T.Y. Hilton, a almost 1,500-yard receiver, but only 6 touchdowns, where most of the guys you'd expect, like, oh, you're getting 1,000 yards, you should have 10 touchdowns as well.
The thing about Andrew Luck and the Colts is that, you know, I mean, he completed more passes. He threw less interceptions than some of his last year. Didn't throw as many touchdowns, but man threw 31 touchdowns. That's no joke. That's up there. He's not going to compete with his 40 touchdown season in 2014 very often.
And they technically had 32 because Tolson had one as well.
There you go.
As a team, they had 32 total passing touchdowns.
But that's not Andrew Luck.
No.
So, anyways, I mean, Andrew Luck, he's a phenomenal quarterback. The big thing for the Colts is what they tried to address in the offseason. It's the defense. On paper, what we love to talk about in the offseason, on paper, this is telling you everything that they needed to do, they did. Really. Minus my personal thing about the running back situation. But they did what they needed to do. We just need to see it happen. And injuries are going to be something that completely kills it and ruins what they tried to do in the offseason about really addressing this defense, and especially the secondary, where they currently have half the starting secondary on the PUP list. So, like I said, there's no reason for the Colts to ever miss the playoffs. If you're sitting there and you have the Colts not penciled into at least the 6th seed, there's something wrong with your projections. There's something wrong with your predictions.
You're saying that's how it should be, though.
That's how it should be, always. We'll see what happens because there's a lot of injuries on this Colts team right now that we should be worried about. I mean, you know, Andrew Luck, for having those shoulder issues throughout the season, still put up a shit ton of numbers. He did great with these injury issues. So even if he's a little banged up week 1, I am not that concerned about him. I am concerned about the defense being injured because that's putting a lot of pressure on Andrew Luck. But I don't know. I mean, the team should, like I said, always be penciled in, so you can't count him out.
And the thing I'm looking at is the schedule right now. And because I'm not one of the guys here at MVP giving the prediction, I see this team at best. Well, not at best, because there's always some games here and there. But right now I look at the schedule, and it's not a schedule I look at for the Colts and I say playoff team, like you just said. Like I see 8-8 from this schedule.
Which is totally possible.
And it's one of those things where I see the division. I have them 3-3 in the division. Win the home games, lose the road games. I even have Jacksonville splitting with them this year, which could flip. But I even got them like, you're beating the Steelers just because it's a home game. However, you played the Seahawks. The Cardinals I expect to be better early in the season. The Bills, even though I have you losing that game, that could be a win. I have you beating Denver, though. That could be a loss. I only have you winning that game because it's at home. And you also play teams like the Ravens as well. This is a very tough schedule to me. And tough as in, I find it hard to. You could make a 10-win season out of this schedule.
Yeah.
I could flip it.
I could do it.
I could flip the Raven and the Bill game right now and make it a 10-6 schedule. But to me, where I think it's going to be is another 8-8 season. And the thing I was going to ask you because of that is, if this Colt team's another 8-8 season or even 9-7 and misses the playoffs, could this be a year where on Black Monday will Chuck Pagano's name be a name we talk about come Black Monday?
Well, we're going to talk about Chuck Pagano for sure if this isn't going well. Is it we're talking about him because he gets fired or because he once again should get fired? Because he should have been gone last year.
Do you think if they're 8-8, let's say 8-8 at the end of the year, does he get shit canned?
I have to feel like he does because he probably should have gotten fired last year, and they talked about firing him. They just didn't do it. And I don't know if it was just they didn't have the courage to pull the trigger or if it was let's give him another year. Let's just see. But, I mean, he's in a situation, where he's got so much there to save his job, where he's certainly going to be made better by having Andrew Luck. And, hey, the Chud's here. The Chud's the offensive coordinator. So, will he get fired? It's hard to say he will if they go bad and have a bad season because he didn't get fired when he probably should have before. But I'd have to think they would. If they miss the playoffs again.
I would find it funny if the Colts did go 8-8 as well, because that would mean under Chuck Pagano, 11-5 the first 3 seasons, with wild card, divisional, and AFC championship game being the progression they lost in, and then ever since the 2015 season, 8-8 it would be for the next 3. And it would just be complete stagnation with 8-8, 8-8, 8-8 if they finished 8-8 this season.
Yeah, and you talk about the schedule, and that's the tough thing is you kind of have them at that 8-8, and you can push them to 9-7, you can push them to 10-6.
I don't see more than 10 wins on the schedule.
More than 10? No, I don't see them as an 11-win team. But I can get them to 10 wins, and it's not that difficult to do it. They've got some really good winnable games if this defense is healthy. If everyone's helping Andrew Luck, if Frank Gore is still there, still performing, still being a 1,000-yard running back.
Well, this is where we're going to turn the conversation on to you guys. Let us know down below, how's Andrew Luck going to play this year? Is this going to be, if you guys finish 8-8, will this be a year we see Pagano fired on Black Monday, or in the offseason, will he get fired if they don't make the playoffs? And what do you see about this defense, and how is this team going to fare? Do you see them at 8-8? Are they 10-6? Are they lower than 8-8? Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section.